There's a lot of weird information out there for new stoners. If you start looking into tips and advice and things to know before you start smoking, you're going to come across some weird information. And I've seen a lot of this information over the years, and it's just sad how a lot of the bad information just gets recycled and reused over and over again. And we still have people giving out advice like, oh, make sure you're extra polite and corner your bowl and hand somebody an already half-smoked bowl of mostly ash and feel good about yourself because you're polite. I don't know. There's a lot of weird information out there that just I don't agree with. And I was thinking to myself, if I had a time machine and I could go back in the past before I ever took my first puff, what would I say to myself? What kind of tips, what kind of advice would I give? What would you say to yourself before you ever take your first hit? What kind of tips would you have for yourself? Let me know. But I came up with 5 tips for every new stoner. And the first one is really easy, but you know what? People need to hear it. Water is your best friend. Water. You need to drink more water. This is for everybody. This is not for new stoners. This is for old stoners. This is for everybody on the planet. People are like criminally dehydrated. Go drink some water. Water, when it comes to the sesh, I think if you've watched any of my content, you know sip before you rip right now, which really helps a lot of people to take that hit and not cough as much or to take a bigger hit. But what I'm learning is some people are just so unbelievably dehydrated that when you say sip before you rip and they take that sip of water before they rip, that was like the first sip of water they've ever had in their life. People are just drinking sodas and juices and Gatorades and Body Armor and all kind of stuff, and they're not drinking water. It's kind of wild. Like the number one reason people can't take big hits and people cough their lungs out when they're taking hits is because they're just so dehydrated, their body can't handle any amount of smoke. Their airways are just so dry. They don't produce any saliva because their body has no water to do so. Water is your best friend when it comes to the sesh. It'll help you get through those hits. And if you're smart and you're using a water pipe, it's going to make those hits smoother because you're putting the water in the pipe. You're not going to drink the water that's in the pipe, but water is your best friend at the sesh. Clean water in your piece makes your hits smoother. Drinking clean water while you're seshing is also going to make your hits smoother, and it's going to make sure you're not dehydrated. It sounds like a weird tip, but people literally need to hear drink water. It's the secret trick to unlocking your potential for massive bong rips and not coughing your lungs out. Drink water. My next tip, or tip number 2, and a lot of people need to hear this. I needed to hear this. It's something I figured out over time, but you can't be high all day, or you can't be high all the time. I don't know, when I first was getting into smoking, I had this notion that like stoners were just high all the time. If you were a stoner, you were just blazed, you were just haha dude all the time. And it doesn't work. In practice, it doesn't work. We all know if you try to be high all the time, you're just going to be medium. It caps at a certain point. It doesn't work out to try to be high the 16 hours that you're awake in a day. It just doesn't work. But people literally need to hear the advice. I think in my experience, I can be high about 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe 6 or 7 if I really try. But if I do less smoking, or I have a shorter window of how long I think I can be high, I'm going to be higher in that window. For me, I do the majority of my smoking from 9 p.m. to about 2 a.m. 5-hour window. I do it every night live on Twitch. You can actually tune in and sesh with me. And so many people have told me they've fixed their tolerance or cured their tolerance. They've saved tons of money. They're getting way higher, all because they just wait till my smoke sesh to smoke. They wait till 9 and they smoke with me. And it's like, oh, bro, I'm not just blasting through weed all day, barely getting high and spending 3 times as much money being a knucklehead. So it took me years to figure out, but you can't be high all day. You can't be high all day every day. You can be high all day a few days maybe, but then at a certain point it doesn't work. The second day you were trying to be high all day, you weren't as high as the first day. The third day you weren't as high as the second day, so on and so forth. My next tip, or tip number 3, is, I mean, it sounds obvious, but it's something that you should think about as a new stoner or before you really get into it. But it costs money. It costs money. The more you like it, the more you're going to spend. My last tip of not being high all day will help you to save money because you're not just being a knucklehead blowing all your money on flour and then smoking it the same day. But it's going to cost money. Speaking of money, if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually give me Jeff Bezos money. Link your Amazon Prime to your Twitch account and you can subscribe to my Twitch for free. And, well, guess what I'm going to spend that money on? I'm taking it to the dispo. But it costs money. It's a new bill you're going to acquire. If you want to be a stoner, you have a new bill. It's your flower bill. It's your dab bill. It's your oil bill. However you want to look at it, you have a new bill. If you're trying to be a regular stoner, if you're just trying to smoke once or try edibles once, not a big deal. But if you think you're going to be a stoner or you want to be a stoner, it's going to cost money. It's not free. Be smart with your purchases. Obviously, you can save money by buying in bulk sometimes in some places. A lot of legal shops do that. They'll have deals on bulk. But something I've learned over the years is the more you have, the more you smoke. So sometimes when you just go get a great deal and you just have a ton of stuff lying around, it becomes a little bit harder to have that self-control and wait till later in the day because you're like, I'm swimming in flour right now. I've got an unlimited amount. It runs out. It always runs out. So be smart with your purchases, but then also practice self-control. You can't be high all day, even when you have an unlimited amount of flour. My fourth tip, and this is something that I talk with people a lot about, and I learn more and more about it, but strains hit everybody different. Just because you read on a review, you looked on the internet and it said you were going to feel X, Y, and Z from smoking whatever it was, doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. I've been in plenty of sessions where everybody's smoking the same thing, the same strain, and everybody's experiencing a different kind of high. Just because it says you're going to feel euphoria and you're going to be extra chatty and giggly doesn't mean that you are. I think for the most part, strain reviews are a joke and I can't take them serious. I've had multiple people tell me like, hey bro, I appreciate your strain reviews. I really like the strain reviews that you do. And I'm always like, what? When have I ever? I don't know. I mean, I'll rate the quality of something and I'll note the strain, but just because you tell me I'm going to feel a certain way from smoking it doesn't mean that's true. Doesn't even mean it's close to true. People hit me up all the time. What's a good beginner strain for a new stoner? Just go get what they have. There's like 1,000 strains. I'm going to tell you one and they're not going to have it anywhere near you. Just go try something out. I saw an article the other day. I was like, make sure to keep some of these budget strains on hand. And I'm like, bro, they sell one of those at my dispo and it's the top shelf. It costs more than everything. But this article says it's a budget strain. I'll show them the article in the dispo. I'm like, nah, this is supposed to be a budget strain. So I'm going to need you to take half the price off. But don't take people who give out strain reviews too seriously. Don't take indica and sativa too seriously. It's not exactly how it's marketed. I do have other videos on those topics. You can look into it a little deeper, but one strain doesn't hit 10 stoners the same. So just because somebody said it hit them this way doesn't mean it's going to hit you that way. And my last tip number 5, I actually have a few more written down. I might make a part 2 to this. Leave me a comment. Let me know if I should make a part 2. But my last tip is kind of interesting because this one is for me now. I still need to listen to this tip. But just because they sell it doesn't mean you have to buy it, okay? Now, this is really true for me in the sense of devices and things that you use for smoking, because there's so many things out there that are packaged and sold. You can find them in a head shop. You can find them in a website. They have interesting branding and packaging. They got all this stuff, but the product is just so unbelievably bad. I can't tell you how many e-rigs are like $300 and aren't worth 20 bucks, bro. There's so many products out there that suck. Like 99% of herb vaporizers are absolute dog water. Like they're not worth a penny. Like they shouldn't even be used and they can make your smoking experience worse. Like I've made a whole video talking about how I didn't like vaping and it was because 99% of the herb vaporizers out there are just trash and they give herb vaporizing a bad name. It's kind of wild. So just because they sell it, just because they say this is for that, doesn't mean you have to get it. It can be true with glass. Like you buy stuff, right? You're like, well, it costs more, so it's better. Like I used to be a big fan of getting glass pieces, and you'd find pieces that have more percolators and they're bigger and have crazy chambers and all this kind of stuff to them. And you're like, wow, that's bigger and better and it costs more money. And it's like, oh, now I just have a piece that hits kind of weird. It's got weird airflow and now it's really, really hard to clean. And I want to keep my piece clean every day, but like, bro, shaking the cleaner through this thing is kind of wild. So just because they sell it doesn't mean you have to buy it. I have all this glass behind me. I have a ton of stuff. I'm going to get more. I'm going to try out new things because there's probably something out there that I don't know about yet that's better than what I have. But if you tune into my nightly sessions on Twitch, you know that I kind of stick to the same few things. I'll use new pieces here and there when I get them, but like at the end of the day, if I'm hitting my vape, I know what piece hits the best out of it, and that's my 18-inch beaker. If I'm hitting dabs, though, I do mix it up a little bit. I like using my e-rigs just because I can push a button. I don't have to worry about torching. But when it comes to my torch rigs, there's like a few that I'll pick out that I'm just like, these are way better than the other ones. I don't quite need to use them all. You don't have to buy every new product that comes out. I'm cursed. I might have to. I'm a creator in the space of smoking, so I try new things out on my stream all the time. I want to find that next new thing, but I know that means I'm going to buy 20 things that suck before I find the one thing where I'm like, oh, hey, this is pretty good. So those are my 5 tips for new stoners. Leave me a tip in the comments if you have one. And if you never saw me try Mexican munchies, check this video out right here. I tried some very interesting candy and snacks from Mexico, and I learned that they put chili powder on everything, bro. Check out the video.